Someone in your life just did something a little strange, a little questionable, maybe even a little scandalous. And within minutes, you're telling someone else about it. Not because it matters to your survival. Not because you need the information for any practical purpose. You just want to talk about it. You call this gossip, and you probably think of it as a flaw, something petty, something you should feel a little embarrassed about doing. But the real answer is far stranger than a character flaw. That urge to talk about other people is one of the most important survival tools your ancestors ever developed. Start with a basic fact that surprises most people. Across dozens of studies observing real conversations in real environments, researchers have found that a substantial portion of everyday human speech, often estimated at somewhere between 60 and 70%, is spent discussing other people. Not politics. Not weather. Not abstract ideas. Other people. Who did what? Who said what? Who can and can't be trusted? This isn't a modern habit born from reality television and social media. It's a constant across human cultures, going back as far as anthropologists have been able to observe. So why would evolution build a species this obsessed with talking about each other? Go back to anthropologist Robin Dunbar, who spent decades studying primate social structures and proposed an idea that reframed how scientists understand human language itself. Dunbar noticed that other primates maintain their social bonds primarily through physical grooming, picking through each other's fur for hours at a time. Grooming builds trust. It maintains alliances. It signals who belongs to whom. But grooming has a hard limit. You can only groom one animal at a time, which caps how large a social group can realistically hold together. Dunbar's insight was that human language may have evolved specifically to solve this problem. Talking, unlike grooming, allows one person to maintain social information about many others simultaneously. A single conversation can update your understanding of relationships across an entire group at once. In Dunbar's framing, gossip isn't a corruption of language. It might be one of the primary reasons language evolved in the first place. Not to discuss tools. Not to coordinate hunts, though it did that too. To track who could be trusted, and who couldn't. Think about how enormous that function actually is. Early human survival didn't just depend on finding food and avoiding predators. It depended on cooperation, and cooperation only works if you can identify who reliably shares, who cheats, who protects others, and who abandons them when things get difficult. An ancestor with no access to that information had to learn everything through direct, often costly personal experience. An ancestor who could gather that information secondhand, through conversation, gained an enormous advantage without ever having to be personally betrayed to learn who was untrustworthy. Here's where the science gets more precise. Evolutionary psychologists have described this as a form of low-cost social learning. Instead of testing every person's trustworthiness yourself, one risky interaction at a time, you can learn from other people's experiences by simply hearing about them. Someone else gets cheated by a particular individual, tells the group, and suddenly an entire community carries protective knowledge that cost only one person the actual damage. Gossip, in this light, isn't wasted breath. It's a distributed early warning system, running constantly, updating in real time, across an entire social network. There's a further layer worth understanding, and it comes from research led by psychologist Jennifer Cole and colleagues studying the functions gossip actually serves in modern relationships. Their work found that gossip does more than transmit warnings about bad actors. It also builds intimacy between the people doing the talking. Sharing information, even mundane information, about someone else signals trust between the two people in the conversation. It says, implicitly, I trust you enough to share this with you. Two people who gossip together often report feeling closer afterward, not because the content itself was meaningful, but because the act of sharing signaled inclusion, trust, and shared social standing. This reframes something that feels almost embarrassing into something closer to essential social maintenance. When you catch up with an old friend and immediately start trading updates about mutual acquaintances, you're not engaging in a lesser form of conversation. You're doing exactly what human conversation may have evolved to do, reinforcing your bond while simultaneously updating your shared map of who's trustworthy, who's struggling, who's thriving, and who's worth watching carefully. Here's the twist that changes how you might think about your own conversations. Not all gossip functions the same way, and the ratio matters enormously. Research on everyday gossip content has found that a large majority of it is actually neutral or even positive in tone, simple updates about what someone is doing, how they're managing a challenge, what's changed in their life, rather than the malicious, reputation-destroying rumors the word gossip tends to conjure. The negative, cruel version that gives the whole behavior its bad reputation is actually a smaller slice of what people mean when researchers say most conversation involves other people. This matters because it suggests something important about the instinct itself. The urge to discuss other people isn't inherently harmful. It's a neutral, deeply wired tool, and like most tools, its effect depends entirely on how it gets used. The same mechanism that lets a community protect itself from a genuine con artist can also, in its more corrosive form, be turned toward tearing someone down without cause. The instinct is ancient and largely fixed. The application is a choice made fresh every time you open your mouth. Consider how this plays out in your own daily life, now that you can see the machinery underneath it. That conversation at work about a colleague's questionable decision isn't idle chatter, it's your social tracking system doing precisely what it evolved to do, quietly updating your internal map of who can be relied upon. The urge to text a friend the second something interesting happens with a mutual acquaintance isn't a character flaw. It's the same bonding mechanism Cole's research identified, strengthening a relationship through shared information. Even the mild thrill of hearing an unexpected update about someone you haven't spoken to in years taps into a genuinely ancient reward system, one built around staying current on your social environment because staying current, for nearly all of human history, kept you safe. So the next time you catch yourself deep in conversation about someone who isn't in the room, you don't have to feel embarrassed about it, or dismiss it as a lesser habit unworthy of your attention. What you're doing is participating in one of the oldest, most consistently observed human behaviors across every culture ever studied, a behavior so central to how humans function that some researchers believe it may have shaped language itself. Not idle talk. Social infrastructure, built by evolution, still running quietly every time two people lean in and start with the words, "Did you hear about?" Someone in your life just did something a little strange, a little questionable, maybe even a little scandalous. And you're not talking about it because you're petty. You're talking about it because somewhere in the deep architecture of your mind, an ancient system built for survival is doing exactly what it has always done, quietly keeping you, and everyone around you, a little bit safer.